The broken piece. The conference hall stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floor. Ambassador James Carter stood at the center of it all, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his 52 years of life. Above him, the domed ceiling showed the swirling colors of the Andera Nebula in real time. Around him, representatives from 300 alien species watched with eyes that ranged from curious to hostile. James had prepared for this moment his entire adult life. He had learned 47 alien languages. He had studied the histories and customs of every species in the Galactic Assembly. He had memorized protocols that went back 10,000 years. None of it had prepared him for the reality of standing before beings whose civilizations had flourished while humanity was still learning to make fire. The Supreme Chancellor sat on a platform that floated 20 meters above the floor. Chancellor Vextor was a member of the Kryn species, tall and covered in scales that shifted between gold and silver depending on his mood. His 4 eyes were fixed on James with an intensity that made the human skin prickle. Behind the Chancellor, the circle of elders sat in judgment, 12 beings who represented the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space. James took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was amplified throughout the massive chamber, translated instantly into hundreds of languages. He spoke of Earth and humanity's journey to the stars. He spoke of the struggles the species had overcome, the wars they had survived, and the peace they had finally achieved among themselves. He spoke of humanity's desire to join the galactic community as equals and partners. The speech had taken him 3 months to write. Every word had been chosen carefully. Every phrase had been reviewed by the best diplomatic minds on Earth. James delivered it with passion and sincerity. He believed every word he said. Humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. James waited, his heart pounding. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. The Chancellor would respond, and the Assembly would vote on whether to accept Earth's petition for membership. Chancellor Vextor rose from his floating platform. His scales had turned a dark copper color. James did not know what that meant, but something in his gut told him it was not good. The Chancellor's voice boomed through the hall, deep and resonant. "Ambassador Carter, you speak well for a representative of such a young species. Your words are eloquent. Your passion is clear. But there is a problem." James felt his stomach drop. "Supreme Chancellor, if I have given offense, I apologize. Please tell me how I may correct my error." The Chancellor descended slowly until he hovered just above James. "During your speech, you refer to humanity as equals. You used the phrase partners in progress. You spoke as if your species has something to offer the civilizations gathered here. With respect, Chancellor, we do have much to offer. Our scientists have made remarkable discoveries. Our artists have created works that—" Silence. The word was not shouted, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. James's mouth snapped shut. "You presume too much, Ambassador. Your species has been traveling between stars for less than 3 centuries. Some of the beings in this chamber have lived longer than your entire space program. You come before us as children speaking to adults, yet you demand to be treated as equals." Elder Morith of the Salkeen Confederation spoke next. Her voice was like wind chimes, beautiful and cold. "The humans shows typical arrogance of youth. They discovered faster-than-light travel by accident, stumbled upon our communication networks, and now believe themselves ready to sit among the great powers." Another elder joined in. Then another. The chamber filled with voices expressing variations of the same theme. Humanity was too young, too primitive, too dangerous. They fought wars among themselves. Their planet was still recovering from environmental damage. They had nuclear weapons and a history of using them. How could such a species be trusted with the responsibilities of assembly membership? James tried to respond, tried to defend his species, but every time he spoke, he was cut off. The frustration built inside him like pressure in a sealed container. These beings did not want to hear what humanity had to offer. They had already decided humans were beneath them. Finally, James did something that would change the course of galactic history. He raised his voice, not shouting, but firm and clear, speaking over the elder who was currently listing humanity's failings. "Enough." The chamber went silent. 300 species stopped talking at once. The shock was visible on faces that had features humans could recognize and on faces that were completely alien. Chancellor Vextor's scales turned deep red. You dare to interrupt the elders? You dare to raise your voice in the Hall of Unity? James realized his mistake immediately, but it was too late to take it back. Supreme Chancellor, I apologize. I did not mean disrespect. I only wanted to. You wanted to prove our point for us. The Chancellor's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it more terrifying. You wanted to demonstrate exactly why humanity is not ready. Your species cannot control itself. You cannot follow simple protocols. You act on emotion rather than reason. Please, Chancellor, let me explain. Give me a chance to... No. The Chancellor raised one clawed hand. The Assembly has seen enough. Ambassador James Carter of Earth, you have violated sacred protocol. You have shown contempt for traditions that existed before your species learned to write. There are consequences for such actions. James felt his blood turn to ice. Around the chamber, he saw the representatives of the more sympathetic species looking away, unable or unwilling to help. Chancellor, I beg you, do not punish humanity for my mistake. I alone am responsible. Whatever penalty you decree, let fall on me alone. How noble! Vextor's scales shifted to black. You volunteer to accept punishment to save your species. But you misunderstand the situation, Ambassador. This is not about punishment. This is about education. 2 guards appeared beside James. They were members of the fox species, each one 3 meters tall and covered in armored plating. They did not touch him, but their presence made it clear he could not leave. The younger species of the galaxy need to understand their place, the Chancellor continued. His voice now broadcast not just through the chamber, but across the entire Assembly network. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds were watching. They need to see what happens when proper order is not respected. They need to learn that the power structures of this galaxy exist for good reason. James's throat was dry. What are you going to do? I am going to teach a lesson that will echo across the stars for generations. The Chancellor nodded to the guards. Ambassador James Carter, you are found guilty of gross violation of Assembly protocol. The sentence is death, to be carried out immediately, so all may witness. The words hit James like a physical blow. He staggered, caught between the 2 guards. You cannot be serious. I am a diplomat. I came here under a flag of peace. There are laws, treaties, laws that apply to members of the Assembly. Elder Morris said gently, Earth is not a member. You have no protections here. James looked around desperately. Surely someone would speak up. Surely someone would object to the execution of an unarmed diplomat. But the beings around him remained silent. Some looked uncomfortable, but no one moved to help. This is murder. James said quietly, this is exactly the kind of barbarism you claim humanity needs to outgrow. Chancellor Vextor smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. This is justice. This is order. And this is the price of your arrogance. The guards activated a device. James felt energy surge through his body. There was a moment of intense pain, and then the broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, 1 billion screens went dark. The Hall of Unity was silent, except for the soft hum of the crystal walls. On Earth, in the emergency command center beneath Geneva, every screen showed the same frozen image. Ambassador Carter's face in the moment before the execution. Admiral Victoria Cross stood perfectly still, her hands gripping the edge of the conference table. Around her, the leaders of Earth's unified government sat in stunned silence. They killed him, someone whispered. They murdered our ambassador in front of the entire galaxy. Admiral Cross did not respond immediately. She was 58 years old, a veteran of the resource wars that had nearly destroyed Earth 40 years earlier. She had seen death. She had ordered soldiers into battle, knowing some would not return. But this was different. James Carter had been her friend. They had served together in the early days of the Space Navy. He had been at her daughter's wedding. And now he was gone, murdered by beings who called themselves civilized. Admiral, the president of the Earth Council spoke softly. What are our options? Victoria finally looked up. Her eyes were dry, but there was something in them that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Options, Madam President? We have no options. We have only one choice. And what choice is that? We make them pay. The President shook her head. Admiral, I understand your anger. We all feel it. But we cannot go to war with the entire Galactic Assembly. They have thousands of ships, hundreds of member species, technology far beyond ours. Any conflict will be suicide. You are correct, Madam President. A direct war will be suicide. Admiral Cross straightened, her military bearing returning, which is why we will not fight a direct war. We will fight the kind of war humans have always fought when facing a superior enemy. We will be unexpected. We will be relentless. And we will make sure that Supreme Chancellor Vextor personally pays the price for what he has done. You are talking about assassination, the security minister said. You are talking about targeting the leader of the most powerful government in known space. I am talking about justice, Victoria replied. They executed our ambassador for a minor breach of protocol. They broadcast his death as entertainment and education. They told the galaxy that humanity is beneath them, that our lives mean nothing. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are going to prove them wrong. The president was quiet for a long moment. Outside the command center, crowds were gathering in cities across Earth. The news of Carter's execution had spread instantly. Humanity had been united in hope for the diplomatic mission. Now, they were united in rage. If we do this, the president said slowly, there is no going back. We will be starting a war we may not be able to finish. We may condemn humanity to extinction. We may, Victoria agreed, but I would rather die fighting than live as slaves to beings who think they can murder us without consequence. James went to them in peace. He offered friendship. They killed him for it. Her voice hardened. Now they will learn what happens when you murder a human under a flag of peace. The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed. Every colony in human space supported the decision. For the first time in history, humanity was truly united, not in hope but in fury. Admiral Cross was given complete authority over Earth's military forces. Her first order was simple: total communications blackout. Every signal to and from human space was cut. Trade ships were recalled. Diplomatic channels were closed. To the galaxy, it would appear that humanity had gone silent out of fear. In reality, every factory on Earth and the colonies was retooled for war production. Every shipyard began building warships of new designs, incorporating tactics and strategies the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, learning harsh lessons about warfare that the peaceful species of the Assembly had forgotten or never known. Victoria stood in the observation deck of the orbital construction facility above Earth. Below her, the planet glowed with lights. Above her, new ships were taking shape. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The Assembly expected humanity to cower and accept their place. Instead, humanity was preparing for something the galaxy had not seen in 10,000 years. Total war. The Admiral activated her personal communicator. Her face would be recorded and attached to every ship in the growing fleet. Every soldier would hear these words before they went into battle. To all personnel of the Terran Defense Force, 6 months ago, the Galactic Assembly murdered Ambassador James Carter. They killed a man who came to them in peace. They broadcast his execution to show the galaxy that human lives do not matter. They wanted to teach us our place. She paused. They succeeded. They taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. They taught us that peace is a privilege granted by the powerful. And they taught us that we must become powerful or die trying. Victoria's voice did not rise, but the intensity in her words was undeniable. We are going to war, not for conquest, not for territory, not for resources. We are going to war for one reason: justice. Supreme Chancellor Vextor will pay for what he has done. Every being who participated in Ambassador Carter's murder will face consequences. We will not stop until our mission is complete. She looked directly into the camera. The Assembly thinks we are children. They think we will cry and run home. They have no idea what humanity is capable of when pushed to the edge. They have no idea what we have survived to reach the stars. They have no idea what happens when you murder our people. The recording ended. Admiral Cross looked out at the growing fleet. In 6 months, they would be ready. In 6 months, humanity would show the galaxy what happened when you mistook mercy for weakness. The peace was shattered in an instant. Ambassador Carter's death would echo across the stars, but humanity's response would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The reckoning. 6 months of silence had passed since Ambassador Carter's execution. The Galactic Assembly had expected many things from humanity. Protests, angry messages, perhaps a few futile attacks on border stations. What they received instead was nothing. Complete silence. Human space had gone dark, and that darkness made some members of the Assembly nervous. Chancellor Vexthor was not among them. He sat in his private chambers on the throne world of Kryn Prime, reviewing reports from intelligence operatives. Every report said the same thing. Human activity had ceased. Their ships stayed in their territory. Their communication networks were silent. A few scouts had been sent to observe human worlds, but none had returned. The Chancellor was not concerned. Losing a few scouts was acceptable if it confirmed that humanity had learned its lesson. "They are afraid," he told Eldermore during their weekly conference. As they should be. The execution served its purpose. The younger species across the galaxy have seen what happens to those who challenge the established order. Elder Morith was less certain. She belonged to a species that had survived for 40,000 years by being cautious. "Supreme Chancellor, I recommend we send a formal delegation to human space. Offer them a path to limited membership. Give them something to work toward. Fear is useful, but giving them hope will make them more manageable." Vexthor's scales shifted to an annoyed orange. You would reward their disrespect? No. Let them sit in silence. Let them contemplate their insignificance. When they are ready to beg for our forgiveness, perhaps we will listen. That conversation took place on a Tuesday morning by Kryn Prime's calendar. By Tuesday evening, the galaxy was burning. The attacks came simultaneously across 20 different star systems. Human warships appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before defense forces could respond. They did not attack military installations. They attacked infrastructure, power generation facilities, communication hubs, food distribution centers, and water purification plants. Within hours, 20 major worlds were plunged into chaos. Captain Michael Torres stood on the bridge of the TRS Retribution and watched the tactical display. His ship was one of 50 in Strike Group 7, currently positioned in the Andera system. Their target was the main power relay that supplied energy to half the planet below. The relay was defended by automated weapons platforms and a small garrison, but nothing that could stop a determined assault. "All ships report ready, Captain," his executive officer said. Commander Sarah Chun had been with Torres since the beginning of the war preparations. She was efficient, calm under pressure, and shared his determination to see the mission through. "Begin the attack," Torres ordered. "Fast and clean. We are in and out in 15 minutes. The human ships moved like predators. They did not fight like the assembly species, who preferred large fleet engagements with clear battle lines. Humans fought like sharks, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could react. The power relay was destroyed in 4 minutes. By the time the Planetary Defense Force arrived, the human ships were already jumping to their next target. Torres had joined the military 2 weeks after Carter's execution. He had been a civilian engineer, designing habitat modules for the colony on Mars. The day he watched the ambassador die, something changed inside him. He could not build homes while his species was being murdered. He could not design futures while beings like Vexthor decided humanity had none. The military had been overwhelmed with volunteers. Millions of humans wanted to serve, wanted to fight, wanted to make the galaxy pay for what it had done. Torres had been fast-tracked through officer training due to his technical expertise. Within 4 months, he commanded a warship. Within 6 months, he was leading strikes deep into assembly territory. "Captain, we are receiving distress calls from Planet," Chin reported. "They are asking why we attacked a civilian facility." Torres felt a cold weight in his stomach. He had destroyed infrastructure that kept millions of beings alive. Children down there would go hungry. Hospitals would lose power. People would suffer because of his actions. The thought made him sick, but he pushed the feeling down. This was war. There was no room for doubt. No response, he said quietly. Set course for the rally point. Let us move to the next target. The TRS Retribution jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a world plunged into darkness. On Kryn Prime, Chancellor Vextor watched the reports flood in with growing horror. 20 systems attacked. Dozens of critical facilities destroyed. Millions of civilians affected. And the humans were gone before any defense could be mounted. How is this possible? He demanded. We have the largest military in galactic history. How are these primitives striking us at will? The supreme military commander, General Thrax of the Valerian Empire, stood before the Chancellor with his head lowered in shame. Supreme Chancellor, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we have faced. They do not hold territory. They do not engage our fleets directly. They strike and vanish. Our response protocols are designed for conventional warfare. This is something different. Then adapt, Vextor snarled. You have commanded forces for 3 centuries, General. Surely you can handle a species that has been in space for less time than you have been alive. Thrax said nothing. What could he say? The truth was that humanity had learned lessons the Assembly had forgotten. They had learned them through centuries of fighting each other, through wars that had nearly destroyed their species. They had taken those lessons and applied them with terrifying efficiency. The Assembly convened an emergency session. Representatives from 300 species filled the Hall of Unity, their voices raised in panic and anger. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested that perhaps the execution of Ambassador Carter had been a mistake. Chancellor Vextor silenced them all with a gesture. The Assembly will respond with overwhelming force. I am authorizing the formation of a grand fleet. Every member species will contribute ships. We will gather the largest military force in galactic history and crush the human rebellion once and for all. It took 3 months to assemble the grand fleet. Ships came from every corner of the galaxy. 5,000 warships representing 100 different species, all united in their determination to end the human threat. It was a force that could conquer entire sectors of space. Surely it was more than enough to handle one young species. Admiral Victoria Cross watched the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The Assembly was doing exactly what she had predicted. They were gathering their forces for one massive confrontation. They thought numbers would win the war. They thought conventional tactics would be enough. They were wrong. Victoria stood before her senior commanders in the war room aboard the TRS Vengeance. The ship had been named carefully. Everything humanity did now was calculated to send a message. The Grand Fleet will enter the outer colonies within 2 weeks, she said, pointing to the strategic display. They expect us to defend our territory. They expect us to meet them in open battle. Captain Torres was present at the briefing. He had been promoted to Commodore after a string of successful raids. We are not going to give them that battle, he said. It was not a question. No, we are not, Victoria confirmed. We are going to let them come. We are going to let them spread out across our territory, searching for us. And then we are going to show them why predators hunt at night. The plan was audacious and terrifying. Humanity would abandon the outer colonies entirely. Every civilian would be evacuated. Every military installation would be destroyed by human forces themselves, leaving nothing for the enemy to capture. The Grand Fleet would arrive to find empty systems and silent worlds. Then the real war would begin. The Grand Fleet entered human space with confidence. General Thrax commanded from the flagship Eternal Glory, a massive dreadnought that had never been defeated in battle. Around him, 5,000 ships moved in perfect formation. Surely the humans would see this armada and surrender. They found nothing. System after system was empty. Colonies evacuated. Stations abandoned. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy. This is a trap, General Thrax's second-in-command warned. They want us to spread out searching for them. Then we will not spread out, Thrax replied. We maintain formation. We move as one fleet. Whatever trap they have planned, We will be too strong for it to matter. But the trap was not what he expected. The trap was patience. For 2 weeks, the Grand Fleet searched human space and found nothing. Supplies began to run low. The logistics of maintaining 5,000 ships in enemy territory was staggering. Tensions rose between different species whose ships were not used to operating together. Small disagreements became arguments. Arguments became conflicts. Then the humans struck. They did not attack the fleet directly. They attacked the supply convoys that fed it. Cargo ships jumped into systems to find human warships waiting. The attacks were surgical and brutal. Within days, the Grand Fleet supply lines were cut. Within a week, ships began to run low on fuel and food. General Thrax ordered retreat, but the humans had anticipated that too. As the Grand Fleet broke formation to return to assembly space, human forces attacked the stragglers. Ships that fell behind were destroyed. Damaged vessels were hunted down and eliminated. The organized retreat became a rout. Commodore Torres led one of the hunter groups. His squadron of 12 ships tracked a limping assembly cruiser for 3 days before moving in for the kill. He felt nothing as he gave the order to fire. These beings had cheered when Ambassador Carter died. These beings had supported a government that murdered diplomats. They had chosen this path. The TRS Retribution's weapons tore through the enemy ship's shields. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Torres watched through the view screen as the crew abandoned ship in escape pods. His tactical officer looked at him questioningly. "Let them go," Torres said quietly. "We are not murderers. We are soldiers. There's a difference." Not all human commanders made the same choice. Some destroyed the escape pods. Some left survivors stranded in space. The war was bringing out the worst in humanity as well as the best. Victoria knew they were losing pieces of their souls with every battle, but she also knew they could not stop until mission was complete. The Grand Fleet limped back to assembly space, having lost 2,000 ships. The remaining vessels were damaged, demoralized, and barely functional. General Thrax was relieved of command. Chancellor Vextor faced the first serious challenges to his authority in his 3-century rule. The assembly began to fracture. Species that had cooperated for millennia now blamed each other for the disaster. The Salkine Confederation withdrew their ships and declared neutrality. The Valerian Empire demanded new leadership. Smaller species began to secretly negotiate with human representatives, offering intelligence in exchange for protection. Victoria watched the disintegration with cold satisfaction. This was psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Humanity was not just fighting the Assembly's military. They were destroying its political unity, its confidence, its sense of invulnerability. "We are ready for the final phase," she told her commanders during a secure conference. "Intelligence confirms that Chancellor Vextor has fortified Kryn Prime. He has gathered every loyal ship for a last stand. He believes we will not dare attack the throne world itself." Commodore Torres leaned forward. "And we're going to prove him wrong." "Yes." Victoria's expression was grim. "We are going to Kryn Prime. We are going to fight through whatever defenses they have prepared. And we are going to put Chancellor Vextor on trial for the murder of Ambassador James Carter." The final assault was planned with meticulous care. Humanity could not afford mistakes now. They had come too far, sacrificed too much. 3,000 human warships gathered for the strike. It was every combat-ready vessel humanity possessed. If this attack failed, there would be no second chance. The Battle of Kryn Prime began at dawn by the planet's calendar. Human forces jumped into the system in 3 waves, each attacking from a different vector. The defenses were formidable. 2,000 assembly ships, orbital weapon platforms, planetary shields, and automated defense networks, all designed to make the throne world impregnable. The fighting lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of continuous combat. Ships died by the hundreds on both sides. Torres's TRS Retribution took critical damage in the first hour, but stayed in the fight. Commander Chin was killed when a plasma column exploded, along with half the bridge crew. Torres kept fighting, driven by rage and grief and a determination that would not let him stop. By the 10th hour, humanity had lost half its fleet. By the 15th hour, the assembly defenses were collapsing. By the 18th hour, Human Marines were landing on Kryn Prime itself. Admiral Victoria Cross descended to the planet in a heavily armed shuttle. Around her, the capital city burned, not from human weapons, but from riots. The population of Kryn Prime had turned against their own government. They blamed Chancellor Vexthor for bringing this disaster upon them. They wanted him to face justice as much as humanity did. Victoria walked through the streets flanked by her honor guard. Citizens watched from windows and doorways. Some threw flowers. Others simply stared. She had become a legend across the galaxy. The human admiral who had brought the mighty Galactic Assembly to its knees. She found Chancellor Vexthor in the Hall of Unity, sitting alone on his floating platform. His scales had turned gray with age and stress. He looked at Victoria with eyes that held no fight, only exhaustion. "Admiral Cross," he said quietly, "you have won. Congratulations." Victoria stopped at the center of the chamber, in the exact spot where James Carter had stood. "I did not come here to accept your congratulations, Chancellor. I came here for justice." "Justice?" Vexthor laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call the death and destruction you brought? The millions who have suffered because of your war?" "I call it consequence," Victoria replied. "You murdered our ambassador. You broadcast his execution to teach the galaxy a lesson. Now the galaxy has learned a different lesson. Humanity does not forget, and humanity does not forgive." She gestured, and her guard brought forward a device. It was the same model that had been used to execute Ambassador Carter. Vexthor's eyes widened. "You are going to execute me the same way?" "No," Victoria said. "We are going to put you on trial. You will face charges for your crimes. You will be judged by representatives from every species in the Assembly, including your own people. And if you are found guilty, then yes, you will face the same death you gave to James Carter, broadcast across the galaxy, so all may see what happens to those who murdered diplomats." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. Chancellor Vexthor tried to defend his actions, claiming he had been protecting galactic order. The jury, composed of representatives from 50 different species, deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Admiral Victoria Cross stood in the Hall of Unity as Chancellor Vexthor was led to the center of the chamber. Billions watched across the galaxy. This time, there was no celebration in the execution, no sense of triumph, only a grim satisfaction that justice had been served. Vexthor looked at Victoria in his final moments. "You have destroyed the galactic order that kept peace for 10,000 years. What will rise in its place?" "Something better," Victoria said quietly. "Something that respects all species, not just the oldest and strongest. Something that understands diplomats are sacred and peace is precious. You had that chance, Chancellor. You murdered it." The execution was carried out swiftly. Chancellor Vexthor, Supreme Leader of the Galactic Assembly, was gone. The broadcast ended. Victoria closed her eyes and thought of James Carter, of his smile, of his optimism, of his belief that the galaxy could be better. "We did it, James," she whispered. "We made them pay." But as she left the Hall of Unity and looked at the devastated city around her, Victoria wondered at what cost. Humanity had won the war, but they had lost something in the process. They had proven they could be as ruthless as any species in the galaxy. They had shown they would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, but humans would never be quite the same either. 6 months later, a new Galactic Assembly convened. This time, humanity had a seat at the table, not because they asked nicely, but because they had earned it through fire and blood. Admiral Victoria Cross represented Earth, though she took no pleasure in the position. The new assembly was different. The old hierarchies were gone. Species spoke as equals, because now they understood that any species, no matter how young, could become dangerous if pushed too far. The lesson had been written in the ashes of 100 worlds. Commodore Michael Torres retired from military service. He returned to Earth and tried to resume his life as an engineer, but the war had changed him. He saw the faces of enemy crew members in his dreams. He remembered every ship he had destroyed, every life he had taken. The victory felt hollow. He visited the memorial built for Ambassador James Carter. It was a simple monument, a statue of the diplomat with his hand extended in friendship. Thousands of names were carved into the base, all the humans who had died in the war that followed his death. Torres stood before the memorial for a long time. "We avenge you," he said quietly, "but I am not sure you will be proud of what we became to do it." A woman approached and stood beside him. She was elderly, with white hair and sad eyes. "You are Commodore Torres," she said. "I recognize you from the news broadcasts." "Just Michael now," he replied. "I am not a soldier anymore." "I am James Carter's mother," the woman said. Torres felt his stomach clench. "I wanted to thank you. Thank you for making them pay for what they did to my son." Michael did not know what to say. "I am sorry for your loss, ma'am. Your son was a good man, a better man than those of us who came after." She smiled sadly. James believed in peace. He believed in understanding. He would have been horrified by the war fought in his name. She paused. "But he also would have understood why you did it. He knew that sometimes standing up to bullies requires strength, not just words." They stood together in silence. Two people bound by grief and the memory of a man who wanted nothing more than friendship between the stars. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secured, but the cost had been terrible. The war had killed millions. It had traumatized a generation. It had shown the galaxy that humans were capable of ruthless determination and calculated violence. But it had also shown something else. When one of their own was murdered, humans would move heaven and earth to seek justice. They would sacrifice everything to protect their dignity and honor their dead. They would never accept being treated as lesser beings, no matter how old or powerful their opponents. The galaxy learned that day what humanity had always known. We are not the strongest species. We are not the oldest or wisest. But we are survivors. We are fighters. And we remember, the Galactic Assembly would never execute another diplomat. The death of Chancellor Vextor had taught a lesson that would echo for millennia. Some species can be bullied. Some can be intimidated. Some will accept their place in the hierarchy and bow to superior force. Humanity was not one of those species. The galaxy learned a hard truth. Humanity does not forget, and humanity does not forgive those who murder innocents. This is just one chapter in humanity's rise among the stars. Want more stories of human resilience and determination? Subscribe and join us for the next incredible journey.